Welcome to the new season of the Live Your Spa Life show. The SPA in Spa Life stands for Seek Power Always, that divine power within you to do what you're here to do. The theme for this season is intentional living. Amazing people like you share ways to live by design and with purpose to ensure that this short ride of life occurs with choice, physically, financially, spiritually, and in your relationships to create a world-class life. In these times of uncertainty, it's time for you to move past the distractions and start trusting yourself more through your God-giving knowingness. No one truly knows better what's best for you than you. In this season, you'll have plenty of examples of people choosing their best life and creating a positive impact through intentional living. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us and being part of the Live Your Spa Life conversation. With us today is Brett Klika, a world-renowned coach, consultant, speaker, and best-selling author who helps executive leaders manage the pressure of high performance with personal energy development strategies. Brett, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Diane.
Well, this is so good to have you because one of the things we've been looking at is, to say the least, the last few years have been pretty challenging, and that's an understatement, but how people approach challenging things, life's curves, really make a difference. So I would love for you to share what the last 6 months of your life have been like, and what are some of the strategies you've been utilizing?
So you talk about those curveballs in life. I'm 46 years old, and for the last 46 years, my life has been, it's the natural, normal ups and downs that everyone has. But November 6th of this year, I was out mountain biking. My wife was golfing with some executives from her work, and my daughter was she was out with, my mom was down, so my daughter was out with Nana, and I get a call in the middle of mountain biking saying that my wife had collapsed and that she was in cardiac arrest. My wife has no history of any health problems whatsoever, particularly serious ones like something wrong with her heart. Within 2.5 hours, she was pronounced dead. And this was the most, I imagine everyone can picture how awful that is as something sits in you. No preparation, no nothing. Said goodbye in the morning, and by the end of the day, there's nothing. And so the last 6 months for me, initially out of the gate, as anybody would react, this was such a tremendous loss that I was crippled. I could barely, it was making it through day to day. But as I went through this process, I discovered something significant, and this will forever impact my life. And this has really given my life. I've always really believed in living life with intention. In part of my coaching, what I do internationally, working with high performers, getting them to understand the importance of being intentional. Many of them have been intentional about their careers, but then it comes to their private life and they've lost that level of intentionality, or they're looking to advance their career. So being intentional is something that I've always held near and dear. And I started to realize as I've gone through this process, and it's by no means, it probably will never be over, quite frankly. But what I discovered that is so significant, and this has really empowered how I will now help people, it's the difference between thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. So my feelings on a day-to-day basis, I've always been a very positive person. My work and my career has always been to help other people find positivity, and not just the rose-rimmed glasses type stuff, but just how to approach situations in a proactive way. And I've always believed that. I've always practiced that. I have not been perfect. Oh my gosh, not even close to perfect. But I've really believed that, and I feel that I've trained that through what I do, what I say, and that's formed a belief system. And so when something, an atomic bomb goes off in your life, like it went off in my life, the only thing that's left that's a semblance of who you are is your beliefs, and not just the surfacey beliefs. It's the beliefs that you've trained day in and day out. And so you have these ingrained beliefs. And here's what's interesting is, if you were to come up to me and say, "Hey, Brett, what are your deepest beliefs?" I'm finding out that half of what I probably would have told you just on the street are things that I think, and they're pretty good, but they're not part of my core. But then the other ones, I'm discovering, whoa, those really are who I am. Because feelings, so you have these beliefs like at your core, but then you have feelings. And your feelings undulate constantly. It's like a roller coaster. It's like something good happens, I feel good. Oh, something bad happens, I feel bad. And that's part of being human. And we shouldn't try to mask when we have bad feelings. They're there for a reason. There's no bad emotions. Where feelings can be problematic is when we start to turn those feelings into beliefs. So if it's this cocktail of feelings I have on a daily basis now, with this tremendous loss. My partner, my soulmate, been together for almost 24 years. The daughter together. So my feelings day to day are anything from the tremendous grief to sadness to anger to whatever that is, and it's up and down and up and down. But my belief system is what guides my actions. And developing an awareness of what do you believe and what do you feel is very powerful, because I think there's a danger in sort of and there's a word out there now that I actually really like and I understand. It's the idea of toxic positivity. In other words, it's the idea of, well, no, be positive. No, come on, be positive. You got to be positive right now. Oh no, you're not positive. Be positive. Yes, you want to be positive and proactive, but emotions are there for a reason. It's okay to feel bad. But where that kind of breaches the line is when you start to believe that everything is bad. And so you let that feeling turn into a belief. And then now you're looking at everything through everything is bad glasses. And so I've learned that, and that's not something I read in a book and I decided to practice. This is something that in vivo, as I really consider and reflect on what I'm going through right now and how I could use this experience to help others, that difference of feelings and beliefs is probably the most significant thing, quite honestly, Diane, in my life that I've discovered. And so I continue to help others with that, but that's helping me get through this unbelievable storm in my life right now.
Yeah. Brett, this is this is the type of things that just rock you to the core. Like you think like you're just walking down, your life in a certain way. You have expectations, you set intentions, you do everything right. And then, you get these kind of life defining moments, right? And for most people, a lot of times it takes years to have a perspective and to get some altitude on it and to be able to look at it. How do you feel like you are, here I go to feelings, how are you experiencing, to be able to make that kind of significant evaluation while literally in the midst of that? How are you able to get some altitude on that?
Well, and again, I'm discovering this in vivo, but it's important when you do self-assessment to see it as data and not judgment. So if I look at, I'm crying, I can't, I'm sitting in a chair and I get hit with these negative feelings. And it's something that I feel like, oh my goodness, I can't recover from this. But then when I stop and say, okay, what am I feeling right now? Just let's take inventory. What am I feeling right now? I'm feeling terrible. I'm feeling loss. I'm feeling, all right, well, that's a normal feeling for somebody in my situation to have. That's okay. It's just data. I am feeling that way. That's not good. It's not bad. It's not me saying, no, I got to change because this isn't the right feeling to feel right now. It's looking at it and saying, okay, well, this is how I'm feeling. And I can feel like this. As long as this feeling doesn't become who I am, or as long as it doesn't become a belief, I can have this. And so if you're someone out there who is, you feel anxious or you feel you're sad or whatever it is, you can go through this. I wouldn't recommend going through the process I'm going through right now. Like you said, Diane, sometimes it takes a long time or these significant things to develop a perspective. But if you allow yourself to just develop an awareness of be mindful, be in the moment, what am I feeling right now? And just be aware of it. And don't say, oh no, this is the wrong feeling. Oh, this is bad. I'm negative. Oh, I shouldn't be negative. Just being there with it. Okay, experiencing this. I'm going to go ahead and experience it, but I'm going to understand that it is a passing feeling And this isn't my belief system,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's such a great distinction for people, because I think that especially if people are in certain emotions or certain feelings for a long period of time, they can start identifying as that emotion. This is where we get suicidal thoughts, we get depression, right? Depression is depressing emotion. It's not letting it be as it is. And I love the distinction of, it's not good or bad, right or wrong, any of that. It just is. And to be able to sit with it and get the lessons out of it, to be able to experience it, and now be able to have that perspective to be able to help people can really make a huge difference. And I also love, as part of your journey, that you're looking at, okay, here are some feelings, and getting really clear on what are your core beliefs. So have you been able to kind of strip away what you are not, and you look at what are some of the core beliefs that have surfaced for you?
Yeah. So right away, I mean, within the first month of my wife's passing, and this, it's just, I'm a wreck. My brain doesn't work like it's supposed to. I can't, I'd sit down to read. I like to read. That's something I do every day. I'd sit down to read, or I'd try to write, and I couldn't get past a page. My brain wouldn't allow that to happen. And so in the midst of this, though, and that's how my brain wasn't working at the time, but I had this unbelievable need to try to help someone else. I was compelled, I was pulled. My brain and body was saying, hey, you're going through this. You got to try to help someone else. You gotta write something. You gotta call somebody. You have to make yourself available. Go to a group and see if you can help somebody else. So I realized that helping others is just part of who I am. And I'm not ashamed. I mean, I don't see why anyone would be ashamed, but I understand how much of a driving force that is. So I realize how important it is to make that a part of my life intentionally, and not just wait for an opportunity. Oh, is there an opportunity to? No, I need to drive that.
Mm-hmm.
I also discovered that faith. Now, I'm not someone that has gone to church every Sunday my whole life, but I discovered that my core belief is having a faith in something bigger. Mm-hmm. And I found that was a core belief, and not that it's not a specific, for me, I discovered it's not this specific thing with specific God and specific rules, but it's this idea of, I really believe that there is a purpose. There is an overall something. And whether or not I know exactly what that is, I can't tell you, but that rang true to me. So realizing the importance of helping others, the importance of, and also the importance of believing in the opportunity that lies within the future. And that one is really, helping people and believing the bigger picture, but believing the opportunity lies in the future. I mean, you can call that being positive, you can call that being an optimist. I don't think I'm overly optimistic when it comes to things. I'm pretty realistic when it comes to things, but I realize that, what I'm going through right now, regardless of what anyone is going through, right, they're in their lives right now, whether it's loss, whether it's a challenge, whether it's something financial, whether it's you lost your job or you're having marital difficulties, relationship difficulties, there is a future. And the amount of choice you have as to how that future shapes is tremendous. And again, that sounds like sort of it sounds like the platitudes of, okay, that's, but always think on the bright side. And we read books and there's quotes and all that, but it's real, folks. It's the idea the future is going to happen, and you do have a choice as to how you experience that future. You do have a choice. So amidst my grief, amidst my overwhelming emotions and feelings, immediately, I believe that, and this emerged that, okay, there is a future. I'm going through this right now. There is a future, and I have a choice as to how I experience that future. So what can I do today to shape that future in a way that I would want to experience it?
Right. I love the intentionality, right? And I mean, I've known you to always be a positive person, to be intentional, to know what's going on. But when you actually have to kind of dig deep to go, is this true for me? Right. And what are the choices, and what is it that I'm going to be doing going forward? How do you find with all the different awarenesses that you're having and what's here for you now in real time, how do you feel this is shaping or changing your parenting?
That's a good question. It's the parenting thing has been a tremendous challenge because I have a great daughter. She's 9 years old. She's just a sweetheart. She doesn't challenge me a whole lot yet. I haven't cashed in my chips. I know the teenage years are coming, but it's made me really understand the importance of connection and being intentionally present. One of the blessings, that one thing I've discovered through all this too, and I've taught this for a long time, I haven't believed it, but I've discovered that your training is everything. So what you do every day, your beliefs, the way you believe, the way you talk, the way you act, your physical, you're always training. And so when it comes to parenting so now it's just myself and my daughter. And before though, I believed, before my wife passed, I had a tremendous belief in that I wanted to have a connection with my daughter. I didn't want to be the dad that I just go to work, and I traveled a lot for work. So I had to really work to create that connection. But I would come home from being in overseas for a week or two, coaching or something like that. And I would take her out of daycare or school, and we would spend the whole day together. We'd go up to the mountains, just the two of us, to go skiing for a weekend when she was like 6 years old. We always did those things. And now that my wife is gone, I don't have to work to create a relationship with my daughter. We already have that relationship. So to answer your question, how does it change my parenting? It's made me realize the importance of being intentional. Again, that word intentional, being intentional. What do you want to be as a parent? What impact do you want your beliefs and actions to have in your kids? And every day we're forming those relationships and beliefs and actions. And we don't know when something major in our life could change. And that core relationship becomes center stage. And that's not just for parenting. That goes relationships with friends. Maybe it's your spouse, your extended family members. It's understanding the importance of, if you're just sort of push everybody off and you're just sort of present, you're just sort of like, well, I'm here, I'm here, dad's home, don't bother me, I'm on my computer or whatever it is. Then something happens and all of a sudden you're having to work when you have no energy. By the way, when big things happen in your life, these significant events, you have to rely on your training because you don't have the capacity in the moment to reprogram everything. Eventually you can, but in the moment, if I all of a sudden had to be like, well, okay, I need to create a relationship with my daughter. I need her to trust me. I need her to feel safe when it's just me. I need her to feel connected to me now that I'm the only parent. Boy, that's a lot of work to make up if you're not doing it on a day-to-day. And very few people, if you were to ask a parent, well, are you okay not having a great relationship with your kids? No one would say yes.
Right.
But it's surprising, and it's not necessarily a judgment thing, but we get busy. Adult life is freaking hard. We're working, we're paying bills, we got our own relationships, our own problems, stresses, our own baggage, all these different things hit us. And so we get caught up in that world and we forget about the importance of, no, having that relationship is critical. And you need to always think, who do I want to be as a parent? Who do I want to be as a friend? Who do I want to be as a leader or a worker or a coworker, whatever it is? And you don't have to be a perfect version of that. But I do think it's important to consider, who do you want to be, and be aware and intentional about being that person. Again, not perfectly. We're going to screw it up. I'm not always the perfect parent. Believe me, I'm not always the perfect anything. And no one out there is always the perfect anything. But just that awareness of knowing, hey, this is the relationship I want to have with my child or my friend or my parents or whatever it is. So I'm going to intentionally take steps to make that happen. I'm very thankful. And nothing's perfect, but I'm very thankful that was something that was in there. That was at the core. That was one of those beliefs, because that's one of the things that's allowed me to get up every day.
Yeah, that is such a powerful realization, is that, it's not in the time of crisis that we're creating those relationships, right? It's like,
Mhm.
be proactive with that. Just like you said, you're training for everything. It's like how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you're training in your work, if you're training in your fitness, and why it makes sense that you would train in your relationships, so that you have that foundation, so that you have created those things in your life. And I like how you say it isn't a perfect thing. I mean, I can remember the days when I was a single parent as a police officer working undercover, and I was crazy in my schedule. And I made myself intentionally spend time to get to the important things, to spend that time together, but it wasn't perfect. And I think that's why sometimes now I'm like, I over make sure that happens with my grandkids, because
Mhm.
I look at the things that I missed out on, that I wasn't present for. And so it's such a great realization for people, no matter where they are at with any of their relationships, but especially with our kids, to be intentional with that. And you don't have to have days and days on end. I love that you pulled her out of school, because what's more important than missing a math quiz versus having lifelong relationships? And we get
Yeah.
to be intentional of what that looks like. So,
Well,
good
something
on
with
you.
that too, using that when you're intentional about your investments of energy, so you use the word being present, and if you're intentional about your investments of energy, time becomes less relevant, because sometimes we can't control time. When I was traveling nonstop for work, that's how I made my living. That's how I was able to get out and do what fed my soul. So that was going to be there. I was going to continue to work. We needed to do that. But it was a matter of when I was with my daughter, maybe it was only 5 minutes. Maybe it was 20 minutes after I remember one time I got home from, I had gone from Spain to China. I'd been gone for 2 weeks, all these different time zones. I flew in, I hadn't slept in 2 days. I get home, and she just came and grabbed my hand, and she wanted to show me her new Barbies, and she wanted to play Barbies. And the last thing in the world, if you would have said, "Hey, Brett, what do you want to do for the next?" I wanted to sleep. But we played Barbies, and I'm like, oh God, I can't play Barbies for 2 hours. I just can't do it. After 10 minutes, she had that time. I didn't check my phone. I didn't, just 10 minutes.
Yep.
And she was like, okay, dad cares about me. He's here. He's back into my life. And so that whole thing of time, when it comes to investing in others or investing in anything that's important to you, time is a factor. But when you're intentional, you bring your focus, you bring your physical, mental, emotional, even your spiritual energy to whatever that is, whatever that interaction is that's important to you. Time becomes less relevant, and that's critical.
So huge, because it really is about being in that moment with someone. And when it's focused, it isn't about like, oh, was it an hour or 2 hours? But sometimes it's just that moment that someone knows that you care, they feel your heart, you're getting to have an experience with them. And those are like putting in the deposits in the love bank, right?
Yeah.
That is building that interest, that allows people to go like, you know what, I can rely on that person, I can trust that person. We've built that, because it is those moments that have built over time that leads to that.
Yeah.
So good. Well, I know that another thing that, speaking of being intentional, is that you have really looked at not only what you want for your daughter in terms of, being active and having activities, but, Spider Fit Kids came out of that. And this whole concept around unleashing the power of play. We've seen now more than ever, kids are on devices. They're not getting outside like we did as kids. You have to be intentional about this as well. And we're seeing the obesity and just the challenging the things that are happening with some of the kids. Can you talk a little bit about what led up to that, and how parents can really shift that with some very simple tools?
Yeah, so the conversation about it's every generation's had the conversation about kids these days. Right? A couple of months ago, I did an article, and I was looking for a quote that summarized, because I was, kids these days. I found this great quote that talked about the kids, these kids of today, they don't work hard, they're not focused, all this stuff. It's like, yeah, that's a pretty good quote. Unfortunately, it was by Aristotle. So this isn't a new phenomenon. And so, I mean, honestly, the way, technology's progressed, the way, and really things like urbanization, like everywhere is a city now. Everywhere they're packing everything in. It's not like it was 30, 40 years ago where you just had big open fields everywhere. You either lived in a city or you lived somewhere where there's big open fields and things like that. So now we have more confined areas. Parents are afraid to let their kids just run around outside because of, and really statistically, outside of car accidents, because there's more cars, most parents are afraid of their kids getting kidnapped or weirdos out there. Statistically, that's not necessarily more of a danger now than it's ever been. Statistically, which is surprising to me. That doesn't make me feel any better as a parent, quite frankly.
We just hear about it more.
Yeah, we hear about it more. We have more ways to share it in media and things like that. And so then you compound that with, well, kids are more active with technology. Obviously, there's more ways to be engaged inactively than there are ways to be engaged actively. And we're getting the same neurotransmitter and hormonal hits from these. It used to be we'd get dopamine running around with our friends and playing games and do all that. Now you can sit down and you can do it online. So it's much easier. Your brain, these brains that are built for conserving energy, our brains aren't built to say, hey, why don't you go outside and run? Our brains are built because of tens of thousands of years where we had to conserve energy to survive. Now we need to get out and use energy to survive. Our brain's like, wait a minute, it's more efficient. You can sit down, you can feel happy. So we got all these things going on. But before we turn the blame to these external factors, I think it's important. One of the most significant factors that influence children's behavior is our behavior as adults. I've talked to so many parents who are, my kid doesn't do this. They're always on technology. The parent checks their phone 5 times while they're complaining to me about how their kid is addicted to technology. So, or the parent's like, well, I exercise. Well, they go to their exercise class 3 times a week. Great decision. But the exercise is amazing. Exercise, yes, it will change your life. It'll change your psychology, your biology, everything. But understand that being active and being healthy is more than just going to exercise classes. And so when your kids kind of see that you're sitting there, everyone's sitting around, what do we do as a family? It's fun. Well, we watch movies. That's not a problem to watch movies. But if the only thing you do together as a family are inactive things, it's not very likely that kids are going to see being active as something that's great. Like, well, why don't you go outside and be active? I want to watch TV. So what happens, and then the language we use too. And I think this is fascinating when we talk to our kids. It's like, well, oh, you can eat whatever you want because you're young and you burn everything up. I have to eat all this yucky health food. Dad has to eat this health food. Mom has to eat this health food. You can eat whatever you want because you're skinny. Or I got to do my exercise class. I got to do this so I can be skinny. Who would grow up thinking that exercise and nutrition are a positive thing when they're presented as something punitive? It's like exercise and nutrition are punishment for having fun. When you create that sort of relationship, why would kids get excited about it? So it's not a matter of turning your family into a battalion of Roman soldiers that are training all the time, exercising hard. But I mean, if you have time, do you go out to the park and throw the frisbee? Can you think of times where everyone was having fun in your family when you were at the pool together, swimming, you were at the beach doing more than just laying there on the sand? Those are the things that are going to shape their attitudes and behaviors towards being active more than the hardcore exercise stuff. And that's statistically, that's what it's shown. And I mean, there's almost logically, kids are mirrors of us. So it's just the attitudes and behaviors in your home. When's the last time you got out and did something physical together? You went skiing, or you went and you walked somewhere together, or those are the important things. It's not so much, hey, you need to get your 30 minutes of exercise in. Yeah, that's great. But it's what positive, outside of sports too. Sports can go away. Sports will go away someday. So outside of sport, outside of these organized, siloed things, what are you and your family doing to create positive attitudes and consequent actions towards being physically active?
Such a powerful distinction, because I think there's so many times, a lot of things in life, and whether it's time, busyness, whatever the excuses are around that, that we tend to compartmentalize. Now I'm doing exercise. Now I'm doing nutrition. Now I'm doing whatever, right? And if you look at like the holistic aspect of your life, like what is your outlook? If we're talking about being, intentional, if we're talking about building relationship, these aren't mutually exclusive things. I mean, who's to say that you're not building that relationship with your kids while you're out going for a walk, while you're throwing that frisbee, while you're like, I'm thinking now, like with my grandson, I'm like, okay, I'm teaching him how to like cut things, and he likes to toss things. And it's like, we use that as part of our eating. In fact, he actually makes my smoothie that I make now. He thinks he's a master. He calls it my potion. So he's going to make the potion for me. So making these things fun, and they want to do it, right? It's how we orientate ourselves to things. And so I love this sharing for, our listeners and for parents who can sometimes feel exhausted. They're coming home from those trips like you are, and they're not necessarily thinking outside the box of how they can incorporate these kind of things into their life. So I thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. I think we tend to make it too complicated. We tend to make it, what the conversation, I've been in these rooms with people, and the conversation is, well, how many minutes do the children need? And what's the intensity that and I'm like, guys, I mean, if we want to have this self-indulgent conversation, a bunch of physiologists, okay, we can have, but understand this is a self-indulgent conversation. This isn't going to do anything to move the needle. The moving the needle is going to be a matter of just how can we sort of relax a little bit and say, hey, people, just go out and enjoy a sunny day. Go shoot hoops. Go play backyard badminton. I mean, do some stuff, because then that creates the momentum you need to be healthy for life.
Yeah, so important. So one of the things I always like to ask our guests, because we do get to create our experience, and so we live life different in our bedroom versus our kitchen or our living room. So what is your favorite room in your home, and why?
My favorite room. I like our living room, because that's where, well, no, I take that back. The kitchen. And it wasn't always that way. We took out our kitchen. We completely pretty much redone our whole house, but our kitchen, we put in this big island, and that island has become that at the end of the day, that's where the family, that's where we debrief our day. That's where we start our day. We eat breakfast around the island, and that's where we end our day. It's a debrief. My daughter's in there watching me cook, and she's cooking. It's become this interactive area of the house that it's special. And we ended up doing our outdoors to match our indoors, because we liked the flow and energy and everything like that.
It's so cool. I love that. I have a friend of mine that says that life happens between the kitchen and the bathroom.
Yeah, it does. I like that.
So it's a way to look at it. So
yeah.
Well, I know that you and I could probably talk all day about this, and I know that our listeners are going to want to stay in contact with you. How can they best do that?
So to best do that, the Spider Fit Kids on Facebook for all the youth things like youth fitness, youth nutrition, youth health. Spider Fit Kids on Facebook. We post every day. For the coaching, for some of the energy coaching and performance coaching that I do, YouTube, right now our site is down. It's under major reconstruction. The brettklika.com site is down right now. It will be up within the next month. But if you go to YouTube, Energy 100 with Brett Klika, just put that in, Energy 100 with Brett Klika. There's all kinds of free clips, different strategies you can use amidst your busy day to engage, to be more physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually energized, so that you can do what you want to do at a level that you want to do it at, whether you're at work, whether you're at home. So those are, and then at @bklika on Instagram. So between Spider Fit Kids on Facebook, Energy 100 with Brett Klika on YouTube, also on LinkedIn, Brett Klika. I post every week, different blogs, different information, and the @bklika on Instagram. I kind of keep you up to date on just daily life.
Perfect. I love it. Well, and finally, our theme for this season is intentional living. So in what way are you living intentionally today?
So I have a lot of different ways to live intentionally. Everything from a morning routine an evening routine, something that I do every day, because I know it puts me in that place where I can, before my day starts, instead of being reactive, I can actually be proactive. So for me, it's morning meditation is something that's important. After that meditation, I write down kind of my insights, but then I have a schedule that I keep myself on. I've always worked for myself, so it's very easy to kind of squander. So I have a schedule, and that schedule is not just here's stuff I can do. It's starts, I take a weekend of planning, and that weekend of planning goes into weekly stuff, and then the weekly goes into daily, and then within that daily, it's by the hour. And that, again, that's not just to give me stuff to do. That's to say, well, what's important to me? What deserves my energy and my time? And that's just a tool to allow me to be more intentional about that. And if I start to realize I'm not getting what I want, I go back and I rework it.
Well, I thank you, my friend, for all of your wisdom, sharing your journey, and really helping our listeners just look how we can get through challenging things.
Well, thank you, Diane.
You got it. And our listeners out there, if you have gone through any kind of challenges in your life, it's time to be more intentional, to take stock of what your true beliefs are. What is core to your life? It's not about ticking the minutes away that we've talked about. It's like making those relationships really matter, and to make those moments be an important aspect of your life, because we do get that opportunity to be intentional. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now.